My name is Bijayalaxmi Biswal. I'm from Cuttack in Odisha. I completed my bachelor's in medicine and surgery in 2019 before joining London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine on a Commonwealth scholarship to pursue my master's degree. Here I'm studying a course called Global Mental Health, which is a mix of public health and psychiatric research. So I totally enjoy it. I'm working on my dissertation on why and how mental health policy can respond to farmer suicides in India by addressing the socio-political causes, possibly through welfare schemes rather than solely psychiatric help or medications. So between my MBBS degree and the start of my master's degree, I had the most life-changing 2 years. I was in a place called Sukinda in Odisha, which has been affected by exploitative mining projects by major corporations since 3 decades now. The people dwelling in the tehsil are indigenous populations who die every year from malnutrition, kidney disorders, gastroenteric bleeding, and no matter how hard the hospitals work, they're only able to successfully treat or manage the diseases to a certain extent, but never truly cure or prevent them. So I realized that Indian healthcare focused very keenly on the treatment aspects of diseases, but not so much on the preventative aspects. So even though patients with kidney disorders were diagnosed and put on dialysis, nothing was proactively being done to find the very cause behind this large number of failing kidneys or to make sure it doesn't just keep happening. When I looked closely at this, I realized it could have been very much linked to the fact that the sources of drinking water for villagers were tube wells or river streams, and both groundwater and streams were polluted by effluents released by the mining industries in the area. So, for instance, levels of chromium hexavalent in the water was found to be 50 times higher than the permissible or safe limits for human beings. And they were drinking water which was dark as coffee. So it's not possible to be healthy in surroundings which are so affected by mining like this. In short, health was being traded in the name of development. And this development was not even equitably reaching the people who had to bear the downsides of mining. When I went to other places in Odisha, where there is mining projects going on right now, like Koraput and Kandhamal or Raigada and Sundargarh, and I saw that this was the case everywhere. There are indigenous populations, there are mining projects, and there is degrading health. So during these 2 years, I had 2 major learnings that informed the way I look at mental health and public health, of course. And that was that first, environment and health were closely interlinked for indigenous populations, which means as the forests were cleared, sources of nutrition just went away. As the rivers were contaminated, sources of potable water were compromised. As agricultural fields were acquired and turned into open cast mines, sources of livelihood and social security vanished. So, and the second lesson that I learned there was that the advent of mining happened to come at a cost of degrading indigenous rights. So as environmental clearances became easier to gain or forests became easier to clear legally, there were major changes in law and order for indigenous populations, like dilution in the implementation of Coal Bearing Act or PESA Act. So I realized that it's not possible for me to only work as in the capacity of a doctor and to only focus on healthcare when it was so intricately linked with Adivasi rights and environment. My work in those 2 years and after I go back to India this year would be researching on this and contributing towards the strengthening of already existing Adivasi-led movements in this direction, so that in the long run, such social determinants of health become an integral part of Indian healthcare. My dissertation currently, even in London, is on the social determinants of mental health. So it's very connected to the entire theme. I was extremely lucky to be born in a family which had the kind of social position in which my education was never compromised for anything else. So there were things that I could take for granted. Like I had all the basic amenities, so I could only focus on my education. My family was totally supportive of me going to the best college available or the best school available. So they were extremely sure that the main priority for me must be my education. And I loved reading, so I loved books. And then I realized when I started reading a lot, I was extremely influenced by the writings of Dr. B.R. Ambedkar. So his writings made it easier for me to look at how one's social location, especially one's caste status, dictated what kind of opportunities you could receive. His essays on Brahminical patriarchy gave me my first essential understanding of intersectionality and inequity, at least in theory. My learnings from him were further refined when I started reading and looking into the work of people like Eduardo Galeano and Dr. Paul Farmer. So Galeano mostly wrote about mining affected populations as well, and Farmer worked in the field of social medicine, strongly advocating that one can be only as healthy as one's social position. So I think my major education of which kind of built my worldview was there. I had a lot of time and privilege during my young years to only spend time with books and have a clear understanding on these things. And when I grew up and I was studying MBBS, it just became so much clearer working in a government hospital, seeing people come in and feel like the government is doing a favor on them by giving them free healthcare. So these things just made me understand that this is not how healthcare should be. It's a right. It's not any kind of luxury. It's not a favor being done on people. So I think these experiences sort of made me understand these things, but it mostly came from what Ambedkar had written. And even now, while I'm in London, I keep on reading the stuff that he had written here. And I realize how much he understood how much education and studies mean for any person, at least in order to achieve any kind of social mobility. So that is my major influence basically in my life. Like, because in the kind of field I am in which I'm looking at problems associated with health inequity or environmental degradation, which have been around since decades, I have to remind myself that I cannot solve them overnight or in a year or even maybe in my lifetime. But I have to keep working with optimism as if even the most insignificant efforts I put is going to be meaningful. So keeping myself together in long fights, encouraging myself when no one else is there to believe in me, radically thinking positively even in the most adverse situation is something of a major challenge which I'm trying to inculcate. Other than that, when it comes to any kind of personal hurdles per se, growing up, I have been diagnosed with chronic depression. So I have been struggling with it since 10 years now, 3 years under treatment. So I'm doing much better right now. So I remember in the initial years of having the symptoms of depression, I mostly stayed in the bed, wasting time, not being quite capable of doing even the simplest things like my laundry or replying to anyone's text messages. I was just watching my life go by in the third person, sort of like a passive spectator. So going from that to be able to read and process books or write creatively or have a normal day, it's a development that I can congratulate myself on. That would be the biggest personal milestone in my life currently. And during this phase, my notions and perspective towards the very meaning of success have radically changed after accepting my identity as a neurodivergent person. Because earlier I used to think success would mean meeting certain kinds of goals or being highly productive. But now success is like living a day normally, being able to finish a book or to socialize with my friends or just make sure I attend my classes. These are small goals, but I know that there are years I have struggled with getting out of my bed and taking a shower or showing up to the workplace. So that way, the very fortune of having a day where I do not have to confront any kind of significant adversity is such a gift. So I didn't have people around me who shared the same kind of ideas like me, but I was fortunate that I had people who loved me nevertheless. So even on the days I was my worst, I was in the most unacceptable behavior, I always had people around me who at least believed that this is not me. I can be better. And they just filled my life with so much kindness. And this is the reason I just cannot take relationships of any kind or my family members for granted, because I don't think there is anything bigger of a encouragement than having kind people around you. So they were always there, and they just believed that um, I'm going through a phase, but I'm going to get better. So just having such amazing relationships in my life, I think that was the only kind of motivation. And even though they didn't understand exactly what I thought about indigenous rights, or they didn't share my ideology per se, but they just knew that I was going through something that they totally could not comprehend, but they still filled my life with empathy. So that would be it. Yeah, so I read this essay by a French writer called Albert Camus. So he wrote this essay called Myth of Sisyphus. And he talks about how Sisyphus is this person who keeps on rolling a rock uphill. And every time he just reaches on the peak, the rock comes falling down. And he keeps on repeating the same exercise every day. So I think this very absurd story made a lot of ideas clear in my head, like efforts that you are going to put in your personal or professional journey are going to be like this. They might be absurd. Every time you stop trying, there might be things going back to square one. But this is how life is. And in this meanwhile, while you keep on putting all these efforts throughout this journey, everything that happens to you, you just have to make sure that that is enriching your life. So that is why he says you must imagine Sisyphus happy. So I just felt that I think that is how life is basically. Even if some of my efforts are going to waste, even if there are days I really don't do anything, I'm just passing through it, I still find that this is what I need to keep doing anyway, because whatever happens to me throughout that time, through the time that is passing, is important and it's going to be relevant to me, and it turned out to be so. Yeah, I think something that I learned during that time, and also would be something that I would like to suggest other young girls or people who aspire to be social change makers, would be that women truly give themselves less credit for anything they do. I think social structures around us are so systematically rigged against women, especially those from marginalized communities, that it does beat down one's sense of self-worth as they grow up. So even though women work hard all the time, working in the fields or working at home, raising children, emotionally investing in others, basically working all the time, they do not give themselves a pat in the back for all that they do, because their work is constantly made invisible in some way or does not receive the validation that it is due. So I think that would be my only advice to someone from the lessons I have learned, that give yourself credit for who you are. I think, like I said, that my notions of success have radically changed, and just uh, having a life which is not met with significant adversity is something that I believe success is. So, which is not true uh, for a lot of people. So I think that is how I look at success, instead of thinking of it as any kind of achievements or anything like that. And it's difficult for me to define failure, because nothing truly has felt like a failure for me. Like even the worst of my days, they have not truly been failure in a sense, because I don't feel failed because I was in a certain position in my life or something. So that is it. I think given a chance, maybe I would have not taken up medicine as a career as much as something like journalism, because I keep squeezing out time in my life right now to do things which somehow involve writing or somehow involve creativity or talking to people, being on the field. And medicine sort of um, made my life constrained to a hospital. So I think if I redo it, it would be that. But um, thankfully, I'm still doing it somehow on and off through freelance journalism. So I'm trying to make sure that I have the best of both worlds right now. Uh, I try to balance my personal and professional life by making sure that my priority is always my personal life. And I make sure that people that I have around me in my personal life understand that I need my space and time to invest in my own ideas and my own work. So that has been working like that, and it's working out quite well. The relationships and friendships that I have in my life have always been some people who totally acknowledge that the presence of my work in my life is very integral and it is a part of who I am. About living sustainably, I'm not sure if I have a perfectly sustainable lifestyle per se, but I remember this Brazilian writer once saying that environmentalism without class struggle is like gardening. So I basically understand that I think I'm part of bigger struggles which are anyway related to sustainability, like understanding how mining projects are hurting people and hurting environment, how it's sort of the same thing. So I realized that my understanding of sustainability comes from there, and I'm going to work towards there. So I don't think I'm extremely focused on making sure that my own personal carbon group footprint is somehow reduced as much as me focusing on things that I think might have bigger impact when it comes to sustainability. Basically, I was just closely following how farmer suicides is understood in India. And through my personal struggle with depression, I realized that this entire emphasis on productivity, which was very external to my own life, it's not like it was intrinsic to me, because it started around when I was 18 and 19, and I was just in medical college, and I was just beginning to understand that there is going to be so much pressure on me to be very, very productive and to yield results of some kind. That was when I realized that, okay, socio-political causes can also have an influence on mental health. And the sad part is antidepressants or therapy cannot make you exert any control on these external factors. And then I realized if someone whose entire life is shaped by external factors, especially in something which is so volatile like agriculture, which is totally um, dependent on environmental factors, no wonder farmers have to go through so much. And no wonder the suicides were increasing, because it just came with other things that were happening in agriculture throughout India anyway, and globally as well. So this very understanding made me think of mental health in a way which does not relate only to treatment or medications, and made me understand that one must respond to the socio-political causes behind suicides when it comes to farmers as a community. I think this is my general understanding of health, again, which influenced my interest in this particular topic. And I realized with the scholarship, I knew that it's a privilege to not have to worry about how I am going to pay back my debt when it's totally covered, when the fees are totally covered by the Commonwealth. So I thought that this would be the best area for me to focus right now. I had a personal understanding of it. Now I had a professional understanding of it after coming out of medicine and after having some kind of idea about social medicine. So I thought I should take my work further. I'm just focusing on researching for at least the next 10 years. But alongside this research, I'm focusing on research basically because there is just really thin evidence when it comes to this area, the social determinants of mental health, especially when it comes to India. But further in the future, I would like to see how I can work alongside mental health policy, on which a lot of good work is being done right now in India. So I would like to see is there a way for me to get into that, to see how I can contribute to mental health policy in India and how it can be integrated to other welfare schemes that are already a part of Indian policy. The only message which I think might work is that to hold on. I think a lot of things can be figured out even inside your social structures if you can just hold on for a bit, because mental health is something that it just every day feels like a huge weight in case you're going through something like depression. So I think holding on truly helped me, and that is the only message I would like to give. I think the one thing that I did was I was always proactively looking for opportunities. I made sure that I knew what others were doing, what kind of internships should I pick up, what kind of courses which will help me to suppose study for free without having to invest too much. So these things, it consumed a lot of my time to look for the right opportunities, to ask people what can be done basically, but to know how to seek help in the very right places. So these are some of the things that truly helped me. So I think it can help others if they proactively look for opportunities and just make sure they are putting enough time into only looking for the right places. There is something actually I'm going to do this year in December. That is, I'm going to Philippines for 15 days of scuba diving. So I love underwater, and I just figured out I should save only for this and make sure I go there. So I'll be going there in December, basically this year. So it was 94. I was born in this amazing family, which loved me a lot. And when I was 5 or 6, I truly realized that my love is mostly towards books, and maybe someday I'll just grow up to write one. And I was mostly someone who was extremely introverted and lonely. I didn't have a lot of friends when I was growing up, but I was extremely attached to my family, which is still I am. And I grew up with them. I grew up with my sibling, and growing up, I think I had an amazing life. I was always I always had the right people around me. I always had people to share my sad and happy moments with. I think that's the most amazing part. Totally enjoy being in London because there is everything that I always dreamt of to have in a city. There are museums. I go for watching plays. I went to Shakespeare Globe last week, and these things are just so dreamy. And being able to do all this alone here and not having to spend on this, it's the dream of anyone's life. And I'm having a great time being in London. People are extremely kind. People are extremely nice wherever I go, and everything is basically the commute is totally affordable. It's easy to be out in the night, things that I have not been able to do in living with my parents or being in India. So I really enjoy my time here. So I do. There are examples in which I have spoken to people who are in bureaucracy, very higher positions, and they promise you one thing and something else ends up happening. But these things, basically, whatever I have been negotiating with people in case wishing that things go in the right direction, they have not turned out to be like that often. But I don't think I'm set back from these small failures, because I sort of expect that the position, the basically the direction of work that they have been doing, that Indian bureaucracy is inclined towards, it is towards mining and not against it. So I think they believe that development comes from development of projects like these, and not truly of the people, not truly equitably of the people. So these are setbacks that I expect, and these are not major as yet. So nothing truly major has happened as yet, which would make me rethink my commitment towards this. since many years I'm following this routine that every day I somehow read 1,000 words. So that is something that I do every day, first thing in the morning alongside my coffee. So I make sure to read something which is very related to whatever I'm working towards. And that is something that truly keeps me going throughout the day. I keep on having things to think about. So that one routine just made sure that there is a discipline to whatever work I'm doing, and not even a day goes by in which I'm not uh, truly working towards it in some way, even if it's through having small ideas that can go into it in the future. And I think my father made me understand that no matter what happens every day, no matter how bad you are in a shape, uh, something should just go on. That is, you must wake up, you must take your coffee, and you must begin your day watching the sunrise. So these are some things that I have kept with myself, and this lesson used to seem so meaningless when I was in school, because I used to think it does not really add anything to one's life. But now just doing that keeps me extremely inspired to go through my day. There is one thing that I do very proactively, and I keep myself mindful of that. That is, I know how to say no very, very often. So I make sure I don't overcommit when there are opportunities where I might end up overcommitting or doing more than I need to. So, and I think somehow throughout my life, I was conditioned to make sure that it's important to say yes, and it was difficult to say no that time, but I make sure that even I don't care what people think when I say no, but I know that I have some limited capacities. As someone who is neurodivergent, I cannot do a lot of socializing. I cannot go everywhere. I cannot work into everything. So that is how I make sure that I always have some time for myself, even if I'm not doing anything productive in that time. I'm just sitting, I'm just listening to music, I'm just cooking something, but it's my time of a certain kind. So in that time, nothing else comes up. So that is what I think I've learned the hard way, that one has to maintain boundaries of some kind, professionally and personally both. And this is the advice I would like to pass on.